K, your notorious and talkative host. And the fine guest that I have on the show with us today is Michael Olabade, joining us from the other side of the world in Australia, New South Wales. Michael was born and raised in the UK, got his degree in the UK, went through a number of enterprises and professions where he explored, and then finally looked to follow his calling and move to Australia to pursue his passion and his specific desire to empower people across the globe in the area of relationships. He's a self-confessed relationship philosopher and enthusiast. He also delivers regularly at retreats across the globe, in particular Australia. He's based out in an awesome retreat eco-village in Australia. He'll fill us in about that. And he has a wealth of experience in this area and the Eastern disciplines as well as modern psychology. So excited to have him. He's made a difference in so many people's lives. Please show your gratitude and help me in welcoming Michael Olabade.
Okay, wicked. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I know it's wicked, man. We're going to give you that. I feel you. I felt it. I've been looking at your website. There's some beautiful stuff there, man. Beautiful.
You're good. It'll be revealed very soon.
Yeah, we can't wait. Michael, welcome to the show. First of all, what's it like kind of being up at the earliest hour in the morning like this? How you feeling, man?
Yeah, no, good. If I was thinking about kind of being outside, but it's, sometimes a little bit, the internet reception will be a bit tricky outside, but it's really nice at the moment. It's a kind of like a warm sunrise.
Okay.
The weather's been good around here so far, so yeah, feeling nice.
Nice. So I got to ask you first and foremost, why the hell you want to leave a beautiful island filled with gray skies and unpredictable weather and high council taxes for some place like Australia?
Well, I was born with an allergy to water, so London's not very... Okay, no. London's wet. No, to be honest, really, I feel like my home's anywhere and everywhere.
Okay.
Because once you find a home in the heart, you can be in Africa and India and London and Australia.
Nice.
But what I did find is that after my traveling, I thought, hey, what would be good would be to stop in one country, park myself in a country, and then see if I can expand and grow and move something. So rather than spreading myself thin in so many different countries, I thought, hey, let's just stop here. And Australia is really favorable for progression in self-understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not too many external pinches that can leave you distracted in the area. So yeah, it's definitely a favorable place to be. Beautiful landscape.
Beautiful landscape. And you're in New South Wales, right? Tell us a little bit about, and by the way, I want to welcome people who are coming in. I've got people coming in from South Africa. Mihir Joshi, tuning in from South Africa. Great to have you. Pooja, Mithilesh, local legends in their own right. Powerful light workers. Great to have you, Guru. Bauna, Jambo from Kenya. This is great. We have people from multiple continents joining us. This is just great to have you. I want to ask you, Michael, just give us a little bit of an idea of kind of where you're based right now. What's the kind of environment you're working out of right now?
Yeah, okay. So right now I'm at the Krishna Village Eco Yoga Community, which is the very northern part of New South Wales within Australia. So the closest kind of areas nearby the Gold Coast, and I'm about 2 hours from Brisbane, just for reference for, people international.
Right.
And it's a retreat center which deals with exposing travelers, guests, retreat guests, residents, and aspiring students to yoga, practices of yoga.
Nice.
A combination of vinyas, a little bit of Ashtanga, and Bhakti yoga. And it's set on the foot of a mountain called Mount Wollumbin. Beautiful landscape, natural scenery, and it's really a place that a person is able to recharge, rejuvenate, and refresh themselves.
Right.
So I get to see and meet tons of people. I've met just as many, just in London, you meet so many people from different cultures. You meet
Right.
Croatian, people Polish, Indians, Ghanaians, Nigerians. I've also had that same experience at the retreat center because so many people travel through.
That's such a nice feeling. So you're getting people from all around, you're working with them on relationships, and I think that's a beautiful thing. And one thing that does interest me in particular is this field that you're in. How do you distinguish the field, the way you're dealing with this compared to sort of psychologists and people who take this from a purely sort of Western academic perspective? How do you distinguish yourself in the skills that you bring? Because I know that, from your background and kind of our previous conversations, you obviously bring together a number of traditions and modalities in what you do.
Yeah, I think maybe two distinguishing aspects here. One would be that relationships are always considered in relation to what's considered to be the purpose of life. So relationships aren't just taken on their own. They're always in relationship to the purpose of life. And from the Eastern perspective, it's considered to be self-realization. It's considered to be that the real kind of goal or target of life is to understand yourself fully. And so any relationship that moves towards understanding yourself is favorable, is progressive. Any relationship that leads to mental peace, which then can allow you to move forward and advance in your life, that's favorable. And any relationship that causes mental agony and, I guess, violence in the mind,
right,
consciousness, then it could be unfavorable. So it starts with a purpose of life. It doesn't just, you're not in a relationship just to make money. You're not in a relationship just because it feels good. You're not in a relationship just because everyone else is in a relationship and you feel, left out, but it's always in consideration with a purpose of life. So therefore, every relationship is unique according to who you are.
Right, which of course means that nobody should feel they have to beat themselves up if they're not in a romantic relationship. That is to say,
exactly.
Nobody needs to feel that way and feel bad. And I think
Yes.
That conditioning that everybody else is in some kind of relationship, whether it's same sex or mixed sex. So I got to be the same way. That doesn't necessarily apply if we take the interpretation that you've just given, that the relationship is hinged around our purpose in life.
Yes. In other words, if it's more favorable in your spiritual and character advancement to be single, then do that. If it's more favorable for your spiritual and character advancement to be in a relationship that's harmonious with your nature, then do that. So whatever is favorable according to the position that you're in your life, do that.
Nice. That's a really great segue to start. So let's actually take in a little bit. And before we get into some of the wonderful tips and strategies that you want to introduce to our audience who are with us here, either kind of in the evening here in the UK or early morning in Australia, and late night in East Africa and South Africa for that matter, fill us in on a little bit about your background. Tell us a little bit of an insight on what led you on this journey and has brought you to this point. Yeah,
so as I was growing up, one of my goals in life was to make money while I sleep. Because I thought, hey, why not? I've been saving money for so many years. Why did it save me? So then, therefore, I got into all these entrepreneurial ventures. What I saw is people who studied aeronautical engineering would work for a business. People who studied engineering would work for a business. People who did architecture or medicine would work for a business. People who study physics end up working for a business. So I thought to myself, hey, why not study business? Get ahead. So I had this kind of mindset where I did a lot of young enterprise. So myself, Sandra, Paul, and various other friends actually co-founded a company in customizing garments and gifts. So we kind of got involved with that. We went to shows at investment banks. We got involved with young enterprise. We marketed to, youth radio stations. We kind of went around that. Decided to further my studies of business and went to Cass Business School, where I went to study business there.
Well-known business school, yeah.
Yeah, like that. And then that was an Angel. So now what happened after that is when the Freshers Fair, the kind of, the introduction. Yeah.
I was old enough to remember, my friend.
Yeah, that's. So I was kind of walking through it. And then I ran into Jay Shetty.
Okay. Our mutual friend, Jay Shetty.
Yeah. And JD, Janik Anatdas.
Yeah, we know JD well. Nice.
Yeah. And they kind of, they asked me for some T-shirts to kind of customize some T-shirts for the club. And then somehow or other, I don't remember the whole conversation. This was literally 10 years ago. But it moved on to, what's the purpose of life? I mean, that's a casual business discussion, right?
Yeah.
Talking about prices, move into,
of course.
Well, we're all humans. And then I said, yeah, happiness. And they said, yeah, okay. This guy's, he's intelligent. I was like, okay, who's these guys? So I went to seminars, found that this Eastern tradition had a lot of wisdom in it. Traded for a bank, but while I was training for a bank, going into this wisdom, and decided to go to India to study it in more detail, and ran into various gurus there. One was from Amsterdam, and then I asked to travel with him, and then it really kicked off from there. Once I, then started teaching in Australia after I got invited to do so when they saw like an introductory seminar that I did.
Mm-hmm.
So then from that, I thought, okay, let's go for it. I spoke to my mentors and they said, okay, yeah, let's go for it. Give it a shot. And yeah, here I am.
All right, let me ask you a quick question here. That's great. I like the fact that you walked away from a potential career in either banking or in a business startup, essentially, where you had merchandise and you were able to get involved with different youth initiatives. So you turned your back. You walked away from that. You gave that up, as well as your banking potential career, in order to follow a pursuit where you delve into the deeper psyches and hearts of human beings. And was that driven by what? Was it driven by a desire for personal betterment? Was it driven by a pain you felt because you saw people around you suffering in relationships? What was your key driver that's led you into this profession now?
Yeah, nice question. What I kind of saw, because there was this idea that I was thinking, if I spend some time studying in India, then I'm committing corporate suicide. I'm committing career suicide. I'm committing CV suicide.
I'm hearing it.
But then I thought, you know what? I thought if I dive into this kind of, this masculine, feminine science, then even if I lose all the material, so to speak, then I know that for a fact I would have gained some lasting realizations and lasting insights. So there was a bit of a way up there. And then when I ran into it, just as...
Because, you turn away from the banking opportunity, you're turning away from a fixed or a guaranteed income, right, of some sort, to go and risk it, to go and explore something yourself.
Yeah.
At a young age, relatively speaking.
Yeah, that was that first time India was 23. So it was kind of
incredible. It's around the time I got married, man. That was a big one for me. I got married for the first time. I was 23. Didn't work out.
Yeah.
It was 12 months, 14 months of fantastic lessons learned. But yeah, so I guess I took my own risk. But my Indian programming wouldn't allow me to go and give up a prosperous career to go and explore my deeper side, dude. It just didn't happen. So kudos to you for doing that. That's what I got to say. And if people are listening on this, I know most of our audience are probably a little over the 25 mark. And, some of you may even have arthritis just kicking in your 30s and 40s now. But hey, I know everybody's young at heart. But if you know anybody who's young. Maybe this is a lesson for us to change a paradigm that's a cultural paradigm, I think, that exists. And I don't think it's confined to the Indian culture. Asian cultures often have that paradigm to ensure that children graduate, go into the machine of employment, or employment, whether it's, employment in the city or big organizations, or it's employment through a family business. And that's just the program. That's just a done deal. And here we have you, Michael. You've just bucked the trend, walked away from that, and decided to do something that you actually did the reverse value judgment. You actually said, well, if I learn something good here and I make an improvement in myself, then was that it? Was that your reasoning?
That was it. Yeah. If I lose the corporate and the company side, but gain from that spiritual bank account, then I'm not gonna. Then at the end of it, I won't lose.
I love that, man. You kind of follow the words of Jesus Christ. Huh? What profiteth a man if he gaineth the world, but suffers the loss of his eternal soul?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I love that, man. So amen to that. Here we are, the Michael Olabade that we see in front of us, smiling, wearing yellow colors, and enjoying the Australian winter right now. So fill us in on this subject. Give us a little bit of an introduction. What are we talking about when we talk about the science? Why are we calling it the science of masculine and feminine relationships, for starters?
Okay, so let's just, why science? Why not art? What's going on here? So first of all, when you know how to do something, you know the art of it. Okay. When you know how to explain it, then you know the science of it. So you have a martial art and a martial science. You have
I like that.
The art of relationships, which means that you know how to function in it. But the science of relationships means that you know how to explain it to someone. You know how to explain your emotions. You know how to explain your needs. You know how to explain why you're in a relationship. So most people, that they may know how to do the skill of something, but not necessarily how to explain it. So that's the differentiation. Nowadays, we don't know the science or the art of relationships like that. So it's kind of like, really, sometimes we can hit the dead ends. But the real thing is, oh, have I lost you? Yeah, no, the real thing is that. So here then, I'll start with an introduction, and then we'll kind of like bounce off each other, I guess, because it's really important that we station at certain themes, because they can be kind of different or new. So the first thing is this word that I love to say, in nature. The first thing is nature, and I don't mean nature as in like Mother Earth and all of that, but the nature means that which makes something different, would make something unique. Those characteristics that make something unique in an individual. So everything has a nature. The nature of your headphones is that in order to properly get utilization from them, you put them over your ears and plug them into the jack port. If you put your headphones over your forehead or mouth or on your shoulder, then it won't work. Why? Because the headphones have a particular nature. It has a nature. The way we're taking our seats wherever we are, or maybe even traveling to work, or well, for those in Australia, maybe traveling to work, the seat has a particular nature. It has a way that you apply yourself in order to get the benefit out of a seat, like that. Or, water is contained. Food is contained. So everything has a nature.
Right.
Everything has a particular way of dealing with it. So when it comes to dealing with something, our phones have so many different natures now because of their functions. When it comes to dealing with something, it has a nature, and we adapt ourselves according to that nature. When it comes to relationships, though, we believe that they should adapt to our nature, and we do nothing, and it just works with little or minimal effort. And so the idea is that just as everything dead or inanimate has a nature, every person or everything living also has a nature.
Right.
It also has, you see, every person has a nature.
I do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so therefore every person's intelligence has a nature. Every person's mind has a nature. Every person's, thought patterns and all of that has a nature.
There is a nature or a rhythm or a pattern to it, is kind of what you're saying.
That's it. Yeah.
Right.
And so it doesn't mean that, right? There's a difference between boxing or labeling or categorizing versus understanding a person's nature so that you can properly align with that nature.
Right. So so let's take that forward. Is that what we're talking about when we're dealing with the science of the masculine, feminine? An intrinsic part of that science then is to use tools to ascertain the nature of the individuals in that particular relationship, and then also apply strategies to work with that particular nature.
Exactly. Because if you don't work with the nature, what can happen is either you don't work with it or you go against it. So
Right.
what you're saying, which works for you, may be the complete opposite, which doesn't work for them, like that. Why? Because you don't understand the nature.
So there's some wisdom here, right? I mean, and folks, feel free to give us your opinion as you're tuning in here at the moment and listening in on this. But it's almost like that old saying, treat somebody as you would like them to treat you, right? Sorry, or treat somebody as how you would like to be treated. Actually, kind of gets turned on its head. What we should be saying is treat somebody like how they would like to be treated, not how you would like to be treated.
Yeah.
It's how they would like to be treated.
Yeah.
That is to what you're trying to get at. And I'm just replaying it for my understanding, is you're saying that, our nature and how we'd like to be treated may not be the same as how they would like to be treated. And
That's
so you understand how they want to be saying, right? That's what we're saying?
That's the thing, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, in Gujarati, there's a saying, Jewo Deo Evi Puja, in the Western Indian dialect of Gujarati, close to Hindi, Jewo Deo Evi Puja, which means according to the deity that you're worshipping, so is the type of worship that you give that particular deity. You adjust it according to the characteristics and nature of that particular deity. And that's how you adjust and you modulate.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. So you take that to any relationships, then that's then you're following the eternal principle. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk. All right. So can you enlighten us on the kind of top 3 or 5 stumbling blocks or problems that are encountered in the dynamics of masculine, feminine relationships?
Yes. So then, as we were saying, so it's good that we started, because we wanted to start the discussion with nature, so that people understand that it's not a political thing, it's not a sexist thing, it's not a division or dividing thing.
Right.
It's nature.
Everything
has a nature. An elephant has a nature. Giraffe has a nature. Badger has a nature. Mongoose has a nature. A car has a nature. The sun has a nature. Benches have a nature. Everything has a nature. Right? Because everything is its own individual substance or element. So in a similar way, the psychologies, they have a nature. So therefore, there's a masculine, feminine nature. So when you understand the nature of something, even if you don't know the fine details, just the principles of that nature can allow you to maneuver and adjust according to what will inspire them, etc. Okay, so then we go into the discussion of the obstacles to healthy relationships. So this is where really, if the audience want, they can really fire out a few of the questions here, because the way we go into relationships is and deal with relationships is often in reference to the past. So it's kind of like you could say, sometimes we may get in a relationship linked to the past, so out of hurt, or because we feel lonely, or out of frustration, or we haven't properly cleared up the last relationship. So anyone who studies relationships and wants to be successful in a relationship, wants to progress in any type of connection, it is absolutely 100% completely, essentially fundamental that they forgive their ex-partners.
Right.
Very important to let go and give up hope of the past changing with previous partners.
That's powerful.
Because if it just makes sense, because if we hold on to those previous exes, to the person who treated us badly, to the hurt, to the betrayal, to the lack of trust, we will carry that into the new relationship, project that lack of trust and lack of peace in our minds, and the partner will feel it, we'll feel it, and we'll end up starting relationship in overdraft before we even get to neutral, before we even talk about happiness.
Gotcha. So, okay, so that's an important principle to forgive. But I'm gonna what if you let me contend with you. What if you can't forgive?
Go for it.
What if you can't forgive, but you still recognize the need to just kind of let that past go? What's the compromise position?
Well, see, the thing is that the more that here's a beautiful quote by T.D. Jakes, Bishop T.D. Jakes.
Bishop T.D. Jakes, I love him, the Potter's House man.
Yeah.
I love him, man.
Yeah, you know
Dude, I grew up on his stuff along with Matthew Ashimolowo, KICC, Gathering of Champions. I'm a West African at heart, brother.
Yeah, that's
like you, man.
That's. Yeah,
Represent.
Bishop T.D. Jakes is amazing.
Yeah.
So he says, when you hold on to your history, you do that at the expense of your destiny. Which means that when we hold on to those previous relationships and previous connections, we do it at the expense of our new relationships, new connections, because we spend energy holding on to the past, which reduces the amount of energy we have to propel us into a positive, beautiful, and intimate future and intimate relationship. So that's why the first thing is to be able to recognize those old patterns and live and let go. I know we won't dive massively into forgiveness because that's a different topic, but at least being aware of, hey, maybe I can't compare my current relationship or current connections to someone I've liked or disliked in the past.
Yeah, I love that. So I think that's a really nice thing and you phrased it really well. Live and let go. All right.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to another sticking point and challenge in masculine, feminine relationships?
Let's go for it. The second will be then we want all the benefits of being single and all the benefits of being in a relationship. We have to we just gotta live life like that. we want to be single, we want to be able to travel when we want, reply when we want, do what we want, speak what we want, eat what we want or when we want. And then at the same time, we want all the benefits of being in a relationship, which means that when we need attention, they're there, that when we need affection, that they're there, that when we want to reply, that they're replying faster than Usain Bolt can do the 100 meters.
Yeah.
Totally. And we want everything of everything and anything of everything. But relationships take sacrifice. They means that you're sacrificing some of your time, some of your attention, some of your energy, sometimes some of your space. So that's something I have to also clear. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then another sticking point, or you can say obstacle to relationship, would be there's some research that recently came out on relationships from modern scientists, and they mentioned that of all the factors that help or allow a relationship to succeed, the most important factor of like money, health, communication is called relational self-awareness. Relational self-awareness. Relational self-awareness is the ability to be able to understand why you feel a certain way and be able to explain it in a way that the other person understands it. What we tend to do is when we feel pain or suffering or issues, we either do two things. We either kind of become really, really strict with them and we start telling them that they need to do this, get out, or, clean up or something like that. We become really, really strict. Or at the time that we need someone, that's the time when we run away.
Yeah.
Which causes a lot of confusion. It's interesting, right? The time that we need someone, that's the time when we can't explain to them, I need you.
Right.
Why? When we need someone, at the point that we need someone, we cannot explain that we need them. So that causes issues. And then I guess a fourth thing, before we dive a little bit more into the kind of technical details, would be, in a relationship, we have to be prepared to teach. We have to be prepared to learn, actually. We have to be prepared for our partner to teach us. So they're going to teach us about our habits. They're going to teach us about our, cleaning habits, or the use of our words. They're going to tell us about how they feel. They're going to teach us about their emotional nature. But the thing is we often teach when we're angry, right? Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, we do. Not in the nicest ways.
That's the thing. Picture this. Imagine you go to school, you sit down. Okay, you got a nice, I don't know, business class or maths class, something coming up. And the teacher comes in furious, angry, upset, just shaken.
Yeah.
And then he's going to teach. You can't learn that way. You close down, right? You close your heart. Every single person is a teacher in their relationships. But we have to learn how to teach when we're cool-headed, when we're relaxed, when we're not angry, when we're not tired, when we've only got 2 minutes to go before, we have to run and do something else.
Yeah.
Like imagine that we open up a big arithmetic or a big algebraic equation and we've only got 2 minutes to explain it. We'll never do that in a maths class. You're not going to do that,
yeah.
We're never going to do that. So why is it that we've got a couple of minutes and we open up this big Bible of, the last 6 months of issues, or over Messenger, right? Over like something that makes it difficult to communicate.
People do that though. That is an unfortunate thing, and I guess what I'm hearing, just and I'm kind of making notes here. What I'm hearing when I'm hearing you say this is, in a relationship, one should try to favor playfulness and inquisitiveness over dictating, demanding, and complaining.
That's the aspect, yeah. Very, very important. Very important.
Gotcha. Tip number 4 or 5.
Okay, so we've got a question here. Shall we park for the question?
Yeah. Could it be Jazz is asking, could it be our ego that we can't say that we can't say we need them?
Could it be our ego that we can't say we need them? What do you think? How do you answer that?
I would totally say, our ego. I would totally say that it could be our ego in the middle. It could be our ego or our emotions, because you just hit on it earlier, right? Our emotions come in, they come front and center, and when our emotions get front and center, and they come out as anger, like the teacher example, or you come home and you're frustrated and something's happened at work and you've been made to feel inadequate and small, and then you take that out on the person that you care about. Those are emotions getting in. Your ego kicks in because you don't want to admit to somebody that you need him, or you don't want it, you're too scared to say that you can do something by yourself because you're fearful. So I think ego and emotions act as filters, which are both helpful and unhelpful. That's my thought. Michael, what's yours?
Yeah, very powerful. I like that. What happened when we feel pain? Because it's a type of pain, right? It's a type of pain when we need a person. When we feel pain, we often respond similar to when our child, in our childhood years, responds to pain. So if you just think back to how you used to respond to pain when your parents, and even if you had the perfect parents, right, still they do things that sometimes cause pain, isn't it? Like,
sure.
That's just what happens.
Social interaction.
It happens. Misunderstanding, So how you often respond to the parents would often dictate how you respond to pain in your relationships. So it's that inner child. It's often that inner child that still needs some healing, because it's a defense mechanism, the ego. And how we respond to fear is almost like a defense mechanism because it governs our survival. And the scientists will talk about the amygdala and how all the hormones that are released from the brain and this and that. So we do that on a small scale. When someone pains us in a relationship, we respond out of survival. And so we dismiss as a survival technique.
Right.
Don't let them get too close. They might come in, destroy the real estate of my heart. I've had enough. I've just rebuilt it for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let your
Keep
dirty
them at arm's
feet
distance,
walk
right?
all over them. Keep them away. Or we just kind of put the hammer down. We become a kind of judge. And anxiously hold on. It's called anxiously attached, if you want to learn more about that in attachment theory. So it's the ego that's a defense mechanism. But the thing is relationship's supposed to be not a defense mechanism or something to destroy the ego against, but the idea is that we can work through these attachments and obstacles together to progress. So try to see that person not as something to bash the ego against, but as a best friend. And we try to talk to them in that way.
Nice. I like that.
Cool.
I like that.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you. And Mihir's chipped in here with an interesting thing. He goes, Hinduism has a great deity form of Shiv Shakti, that is the masculine, feminine, divine, the half male, half female personality of divinity, and the fear to appear vulnerable is part of the illusory power sacrifice. The irony is Shiva is commonly known as the powerful destroyer, yet the balance is Shakti, which is the universal energy. So he feels that the same paradox exists in our own lives here.
Yeah. Great point. And you find that so like Shiva Shakti, that's one aspect. Then you have Lakshmi Narayan, that's the opulent aspect. Then you have Radha Krishna, that's the devotional aspect. And Shiva Shakti will be then the combination of the maintenance and then the destruction. So in relationship, you'll have those elements, like destruction of the bad. Then you have opulent, which brings in the resources. So, this kind of term, happy wife, happy life, is literally word for word in what you call one of the ancient scriptures called the Dharma Sutras, which says that if the feminine nature is happy, Lakshmi comes and it kind of blesses the home. So you get that type of opulence. And then you have Radha Krishna, which is unconditional devotional love aspect.
Nice, really nice. So so that is to say that the dynamics of relationships that we're discussing here had been very much considered many years ago at some point in time in antiquity. And what we see here is it's almost like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but is there not an almost re-embracement or rediscovery going on in modern Western psychology and relationship theory that is now looking back at ancient cultures and traditions and how they dealt with these same dilemmas and challenges that exist today?
Yeah, so it's so interesting, isn't it? You have, like, just for example, in ancient wisdom, just to kind of introduce it, because sometimes people think ancient wisdom's a bit antique, it's kind of out there. By the way, I just need to repeat the question. So question here, by the way, is around what's the kind of deal with modern scientists looking back at the ancient wisdom and trying to look for answers in relationships there. So what you find is these great sages and philosophers from the East already knew what modern science is discovering now. An example of this is the science of embryology. They already have detailed in the ancient scriptures the birth and the progression of a child from conception up to 9 or 10 months. And that's then confirmed with modern science in their laboratories. But
Phenomenal.
back then they never had, they weren't kind of looking through with laboratories and scans, etc. So it's all this wisdom and relationship wisdom is rooted in these ancient texts. All one needs to do is simply connect with them, read them, expose them, and study them and apply them. So that's what I did over the last so many years. So then we get into the masculine, feminine. Yeah, as we start closing, is that so the masculine nature is such that it's weaved off the consistency. The feminine nature then is weaved off the energy of variety. To the point. So what you have in your life is that there's always some level of consistency and there's always some level of variety.
Right. And to be clear here, as you're talking and as you're going through these, we're not just talking about natures in different species, male, female species. We're talking about natures that exist within the same human organism, within us. We can have both those natures within us, that masculine and feminine, right? The need for consistency and the need for variety exists in the same person.
Yeah, they'll be both there. So it's whatever level you want to take it. You have masculine and feminine gender, masculine and feminine energies, and then masculine and feminine principle.
Love that.
So the masculine and feminine gender, then we know, and we'll find that the male body and mind is more suited for masculine activity or alignment of masculine activities. The feminine nature of body is also suited for the feminine activities, but it doesn't mean they can't do the other things. Just like a teacher has a teacher nature, doesn't mean the teacher can't do business. The businessman has a business nature, doesn't mean they can't teach. So it's not that, so that whole political thing is only this gender can do that, only that gender can do this. No, it's just that the natural alignment of those activities. So if I have a guitar, if I'm playing a guitar, the consistent aspect of the guitar will be the strings and the shape.
Yeah.
The variety is that
it's
I can
endless,
play different
right?
harmony.
Yeah, they can just be endless.
It can be endless.
Love
so
that,
in our lives and in our relationships, we need consistency and variety. Consistency gives security. Variety gives happiness and enjoyment. So now what happens is in a relationship, if the masculine, whoever's in the masculine position, right? Now we can, whether it's homosexual, heterosexual, whatever, whoever's in the masculine position, they then can, then if that has to be consistent, that creates security. And whoever's in a feminine position, that will then bring a sense of variety and happiness.
Right.
So how I kind of described it just yesterday, I was speaking to someone, is imagine I bring out a tray of cupcakes. And we can say vegan cupcakes here.
Yeah.
Imagine I bring out a tray of cupcakes, okay?
Right.
Now there's, 24 on the tray. Providing that tray is masculine, whoever chooses what they're going to take from that tray, that's feminine. So the masculine provides, so whoever's in a masculine position, the masculine provides the field of options. The feminine chooses which options they're going to take. So what happens in relationships is we either provide a tray with options that the feminine doesn't wish to engage with. So then therefore it creates suffering, right? They say, oh, I'm giving so much in a relationship. The other person saying, oh, they're not doing enough. Or the tray that's given, you give a tray, but then dictate which option they can choose. So it doesn't create that dynamic relationship because someone's trying to do all things at once. Or you give a tray, but they don't want to receive it. Right? Sometimes people have an obstacle to receiving love. So in all these ways, then it has to be kind of, discussed and understood that whoever's in a masculine position, they're providing that option of experience, and whoever's in a feminine position, they're providing that that selection of experience. So that could be employee, so many things.
So then how does that tie into what you call the perfect union triangle law?
Yeah, so that will be what you call the ACC triangle, which I like to coin the sacred union. So then you have attraction, compatibility, and commitment. Right? So attraction means that the masculine and feminine, there's attraction because there's difference. It creates a type of attraction, it creates a pull. There's a masculine, feminine pull. That's why if you have a bunch of, if you have, let's say, a bunch of masculines in a room, if just one feminine walks into that environment, it creates a different mood in the environment. So there's always a masculine and feminine pull. Let's go commitment, we'll start then. Commitment would be that you're willing to work through a relationship, even if things aren't going, even if you don't necessarily feel good in that moment. Because sometimes we're not going to feel good, but if you're still willing to work and connect with each other, then that's powerful.
So that's your A for attraction, C for commitment.
And the C would be compatibility.
For compatibility as well.
That's what's often missed. Commitment is now getting thrown out the window. And then compatibility is like, what's that? So you're just left with attraction. So compatibility means that whatever I give, the other person can happily receive and be satisfied, or whatever I can receive, the other person is able to give. And so compatibility means, it's like, here's an easy way to understand it. It's like a spoon and a bowl. A spoon and a bowl, they go together because they create, you can, have some soup with it, or this and that. They go together, but they're different. A spoon and a bowl are different, but they go together. That's compatibility. When your differences create complementary, coalescing harmony, then it creates a really nice match.
Nice.
So,
and that's where compatibility comes in, right? And that is, and by compatibility, that can be I guess that can mean any number of things according to your social, cultural, and personal preferences, orientation. It could mean Vedic compatibility through astrology. It could be compatibility through, your human relationship dynamics and principles. Any number of these systems or governing tools can be used to kind of check yourself that you have a higher degree of compatibility with the person and you're not overemphasizing the attraction part, kind of. Is that what we're saying?
Correct. Yes. As in, it's like this. Let's say I want to bake a cake and I get my flour, my sugar, this and that, and I get all the ingredients together. That's like compatibility. Do these ingredients work together? But commitment and working in a relationship would be the process of baking a cake.
Nice.
So even the people sometimes try to bake a cake, but they've got the wrong ingredients, so they can't bake it. So in a similar way, sometimes people try to make a relationship work, but they've started off by choosing someone who they're not compatible with. So
and then they're trying to make it work real hard. And is that a pitfall? Then are we saying that the famous thing that we all kind of should know, ought to know, do know, may have known and forgotten about, which is that external attraction or physical attraction alone, or in the majority, is often a recipe for a spoiled cake?
Modern science says that if you get into a relationship based on attraction alone, at best it will last 3 years.
Is that a thing?
I mean, that's if you're lucky.
You're the relationship expert here, so 3 years, huh? That's the figure.
They say at best 3 years. They don't say an average 3 years. They don't say average 3 years. Yeah.
At best. Good luck, right?
Yeah, it's kind of at best, like that. Because then after 6 months, then you kind of drops out. So compatibility allows that relationship to continue, even if the attraction kind of comes and goes.
And that's where your compatibility, and that's where and commitment, right? Compatibility, and I guess that's where commitment comes into it as well.
Commitment would mean that, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just taking whatever you share and I'm just going to relate it to examples that people, can understand. Let's say I do a 6-week course. Okay, I decide I'm going to do a 6-week course in a chemical science, or let's say I'm going to do a 6-week course in a chemical science, or something like that, or yoga teaching. Imagine I get to the course, right, and then the teachers go, not too sure what we're going to do, but we'll see how it goes. You've paid $5,000 for this course. And the teachers go, not too sure what we're going to do. I don't really have much of a plan, but let's take it day by day and I'll feel out the morning and see how it goes. And I'll just let you know if we're going to do something today. And if not, then, we just won't. How are you going to have security if you don't know what's happening? How are you going to have security if you don't know if the teacher's committed to teaching? you can't have that security. You can't have that deep, lasting security if you don't
Yeah.
know that on the next day they'll be with you or not. So commitment means that your actions and investment and your possessions and whatever you share have demonstrated that you are, to some extent, committed to the person, regardless of if there's changes in the emotional weather.
Right. I like that. Yeah. The emotional
So
weather.
you're right. Yeah. So it's not to commitment. We hear commitment, we think settling down, right? Marriage has got this connotation, settling down, forcing,
Right.
have to be, kind of free. But commitment is actually freeing if you commit to someone worth committing to, number one,
Right.
or if you're worthy of being committed to. That's the point.
Nice.
So, yeah, those aspects. I'll just read out one of my Instagram posts that I recently did about commitment if you want.
Yeah, please.
Nowadays, marriage is becoming a 4-letter S word in society. Marriage is often perceived as being restriction of freedom, a limit to maneuverability, and disastrous for anyone who's free and adventurous. Marriage is apocalyptically connotative with the phrase settling down, as if life's end was initiated. But that's often coming from people who have never deeply experienced the 3 pillars of a sacred union, which I like to coin as the ACC triangle: attraction, compatibility, commitment. You see, when we meet someone who's attractive and harmonious with our nature and ready to commit with us through the turbulent times of a relationship, marrying them is one of the greatest acts of liberation you could ever do for your heart and mind. Your eyes are no longer scanning a room hoping to find someone worth being with. You no longer meet someone thinking there could be a possibility that he or she is the one. You have at least 2 sources of inspiration in your life, you and your best friend. We often meet someone whom we're only attracted to, but not harmonious with, and in many cases, certainly not ready to commit. The first step of finding someone worth being with is to become someone worth being with. And when we find someone worth being with, it allows our minds to find inner peace, which is a favorable mental situation for making progress on our inner journeys. That's the esoteric purpose behind marriage. Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. Listen, it would be great if you could share that with our audiences. Drop that on the mantra_therapy Instagram page. Folks, if you're listening in, especially those of you who are friends and followers of Michael's work, we'd be delighted to have you join us. Check out mantra_therapy on Instagram. Michael, you should definitely tag us on that one. That's just a gorgeous chunk of philosophical brilliance that I think we can all take away, and use in our lives, and remind us, right? Because a lot of us beat ourselves up because we're looking for we place too much emphasis on the A rather than the C and the C. And I think getting a healthier balance again is good for us, and it's actually, frankly, good for everyone around us as well. Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing, Michael. I want to ask you.
Mihir's got a question, by the way.
Mihir, go ahead. Yeah, let's take it.
Yeah. I mean, what's it got here? He says, is there ever a right fit if we are ever changing, evolving beings? Compatibility is not permanent, so is growing and evolving together not the real compatibility. It's the magic to constantly be refreshing a relationship with energy, relevance, attentiveness. The commitment is the faith. If change is constant, then faith is the desire to stay excited in the constant self-discovery of each other.
Beautiful.
Nice. What are your thoughts on that?
I actually agree with Mihir's take on this. I think there's a lot to be said for it. If change is constant, then faith is the desire to stay excited in constant self-discovery together with each other. Michael.
Yes.
There's some sense there for sure. Mihir's a man who's lived some years and spent time on multiple continents. So he's definitely a man with great wisdom, and he's doing a great job promoting Vedic values and holding cultural traditions in high regard in South Africa, is where Mihir is at the moment.
Yeah, very powerful. Here's a point I'll share with what he's saying. If we're constantly growing, how can we get bored? If we're constantly growing, that means the person who sleeps is not the same person who wakes up the next morning. The person who wakes up in the morning is not the same person who sleeps in the same evening. So if we're constantly growing, we're always refreshed. We're always revived. We always have something new to talk about and new and exciting to share, and we
Yeah.
can't get bored with ourselves. At the same time, because Mahir said, is there ever a right fit if we're always growing? It's like being in the same lane. So if you're in the same lane, you're growing in a way that's complementary to each other. That's the idea. So if you're rowing a boat and your partner's rowing a boat, what happens when you row faster?
They're going to row faster.
If you paddle faster than your partner, you're going to go around in a big circle.
You're going to go around in a big circle.
But if you paddle at similar speeds, then you can progress. So the idea is not to stop growing.
Yeah.
The idea is to find someone who rows like you. That's complementary.
Yeah, I love that. Good insight. Thank you, Michael. As we edge towards the close, we're going to do a quick final shout out. If there's any other questions, throw your questions in here. I know we've answered some questions already, and hopefully those of you listening and tuning in and watching this have felt some satisfactory and also fresh insights on this important subject in ways that perhaps you didn't expect. I think that's part of what we do here. Listen, while that's coming in, Michael, let me ask you this one final question on the idea of upgrading our attraction. 3 quick fire tips to upgrade our attraction, Michael, please.
Oh my God. Okay, the question is to three quick fire tips to upgrading our attraction. 1 is to become someone worth being with.
Love that. Okay.
So that means you're of a worthy character that people actually want to be with you. Upgrade your attraction. 2nd would be to upgrade our attraction. We need to upgrade what we're looking for, because if you're looking for just the cheap bargains in a shop, that's what you'll only see and be attracted to. But if you're looking for the organic, fresh produce, then that's what you'll see. And the 3rd would be dive deep into spiritual practice, because everybody has a karmic limit to how attractive they are. But by diving into your own spiritual practice, you unlock and unbreak those karmic limitations, and you become attractive. You become connected with the all attractive, which means that you yourself become imbued with attractive potency.
Love that. So number 1, upgrade our own attraction, become more internally attractive, become worthy of somebody wonderful around you, become the best you that you can be for somebody else. 2, upgrade or refine your definition of attraction. Is that a fair comment? Is that a fair way to say number 2?
Yep.
Refine your attraction criteria for the people around you. And then 3, embrace a spiritual practice. And if you've already got one, then refine that spiritual practice.
That's it. I've got a question here from Instagram. Would you like me to share it? I don't know what.
Please,
how's our time? Okay. Ray Burns. She's one of my great friends from Australia, and she's now moved to the UK. She's in Brighton. She asks, how can you tell if someone is karmically in line with you?
That could be another hour here, man.
Is what's the time now? 10:20.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Shall I do a short thing?
Give us a glimpse. Give us an insight, man.
I'll give it a glimpse. The glimpse would be what would the glimpse? Karmic clean line. Okay, the real thing would be then the Vedic astrology. That would be the key thing. So if you're able to, in whatever way, if someone's kind of thinking of you and you're thinking of them, if you're able to kind of check the
nice
Vedic astrology compatibility, not just with one Vedic astrologer. Generally, I recommend 3, because if 3 people are all saying this similar things, then it can give some confirmation, especially if they're independent of each other. That's one thing. But even if you've not got access to Vedic astrology, what you're looking for karmically is the tendency of the person. So what would they do if money were no object? What would they do if they couldn't fail? Is what they would do if they couldn't fail similar to what you'd do if you couldn't fail? Then you probably got a bit of a karmic or nature complementary, those aspects. So what's the values? You want to be learning about the values of a person. What's important to them in their life? What can they not do without? How do they want to serve the world? What would they do if they had unlimited amounts of energy? Those are the types of questions you need to know if you've got a kind of similar karmic patterns. It's
Nice.
unlimitedly deep, so we won't be able to get into those technicalities